After Rob Reiner and his wife passed away, the public release of his final will by the family lawyer immediately ignited a seismic wave of public outrage. Instead of bringing closure, it opened the door to anger and suspicion when Nick Reiner, the son, long regarded as the most lost and unstable, was granted the majority of the estate solely because of his parents' concern for his future. California law stipulates that anyone who kills their parents is barred from inheriting. Yet Nick has been diagnosed with a mental disorder. Could this be a narrow legal loophole that allows him to slip past the law and lay his hands on a fortune worth $200 million? Had Nick known about this will in advance, and did he therefore take action against his parents in order to claim the inheritance? Meanwhile, Romy and Jake did not remain idle. They quickly hired lawyers determined to overturn the will, not only to stop Nick, but also to strip away the portion of the estate allocated to Tracy, the adopted child, whom they argued was not of the same bloodline. Amid this vortex, a statement Rob Reiner had once confided to friends in the past, suddenly echoed like a knife twisting deep into the wound. "My children are my lifeblood. I have never loved anyone the way I love them." Now, as the children he loved more than anything plunge into a ruthless battle over money, those words take on a bitter choking quality. Was that unconditional love ever truly cherished? Or from the very beginning, did it inadvertently become a ticket leading to a brutal struggle for wealth? On December 14, 2025, legendary director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner were murdered inside their own mansion in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. Just hours after police arrived at the scene, their son Nick Reiner was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, accused of directly causing the deaths of his parents. After Nick Reiner's arrest, one question immediately arose. Who would inherit Rob Reiner's $200 million estate? It should be noted that Rob had 4 legal children: Nick Reiner, Romy Reiner, Jake Reiner, and Tracy Reiner, his adopted daughter from his first marriage. Estate and inheritance attorney Sean Weisbart shared his professional perspective on Nick Reiner's situation in relation to the approximately $200 million left behind by his parents. According to Weisbart, California law contains a clear provision known as the Slayer statute designed to prevent killers from benefiting from their victims. Specifically, if a person intentionally and criminally kills someone from whom they were meant to inherit, that person is legally deemed to have predeceased the victim and completely forfeits any right to the estate, even under a will. Weisbart emphasized that if Nick Reiner were convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder as currently charged, this statute would apply automatically and absolutely. Nick's anticipated inheritance would then be redistributed among the remaining 3 siblings, Jake, Romy, and Tracy. In fact, the Slayer statute can even be applied by a civil court without waiting for a criminal conviction, as long as it can be proven with a probability greater than 50% that Nick intentionally caused the deaths. However, attorney Weisbart also pointed out a significant legal loophole. The Slayer statute requires that the act of killing be intentional. If Nick were found not guilty by reason of insanity, an outcome the defense team appears to be pursuing based on his long history of addiction and mental health issues, then the statute might not apply. In that case, Nick could still be eligible to receive his inheritance as usual because the element of intent would be negated. Even so, what has enraged the public more than Rob Reiner's death is a chilling detail contained in his final will, one that reveals a horrifying truth enough to fan the flames of anger and suspicion throughout public opinion. Recently, a document believed to be the legendary director Rob Reiner's final will was unexpectedly leaked on online forums. Drafted approximately 2 years ago. This will left both the public and those close to the Reiner family bewildered and even deeply shocked by its unusual distribution of assets. According to the leaked contents, Rob Reiner decided to allocate as much as 70% of his estimated $200 million estate to his second son, Nick Reiner, the very person now accused of murdering his parents. This portion amounts to approximately $140 million and includes full copyright ownership of the classic films he directed or produced through Castle Rock Entertainment, such as When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men, and royalties from Seinfeld. Not only that, Nick was also designated to inherit the main Brentwood residence, a New England-style mansion where the family had lived for many years and where the crime occurred, currently valued at more than $10 to $13 million. Many have questioned whether Rob Reiner had some kind of premonition about the future or whether this decision was simply born out of love for a son who had faced numerous personal struggles. The remainder of the estate was divided far more modestly. 20% was allocated to Tracy Reiner, the eldest daughter from Rob's first marriage to Penny Marshall, amounting to approximately $40 million. Meanwhile, the remaining 10% was split evenly between the two other biological children, Jake and Romy Reiner, meaning each would receive only about $10 million. Within the will, Rob also left a brief but emotionally charged message. "I have always believed that each child has their own path, but Nick will need the opportunities that I am able to give him." This note left many people feeling both sympathetic and uncertain, as it seemed to partially explain why Rob chose to give the majority of his wealth to Nick despite the risks and family tensions involved. For many years, Rob and Michelle had watched Nick struggle with addiction and serious life difficulties. Professional failures, financial instability, and even periods of homelessness falling so deeply into addiction that he had to rely on his parents for help made Rob deeply anxious about Nick's future. As a result, he decided to leave Nick the largest share of the estate, intending to give him a chance to stabilize his life, manage long-term profitable film copyrights, and maintain the Brentwood home, a place filled with family memories. In the will, Rob also noted that this was his way of helping his son gain a chance at independence and avoid falling into despair, even though he knew Nick still faced many challenges. A short but deeply heartfelt message he left behind read, "I just want Nick to have a chance to get back on the right path, so he does not repeat the mistakes I have seen." This shows that the decision to give Nick a larger share was entirely rooted in deep concern and worry for his son's future. As for Tracy Reiner, the eldest daughter, she was granted 20% of the estate, equivalent to about $40 million. Rob understood that Tracy had her own family and responsibilities, including caring for her children and supporting her husband. This portion was meant to ensure that she could provide for her family without financial hardship. The decision also reflected Rob's careful consideration of the differing responsibilities and needs of each child. The two remaining children, Romy Reiner and Jake Reiner, were allocated only the remaining 10%, equivalent to about $20 million. Rob believed that both of them had established independent, stable careers and therefore did not require as large a share as Nick or Tracy. His intention was to distribute the assets reasonably based on actual needs while maintaining what he believed to be fairness. Rob once told them, "I know you are grown and can stand on your own, but I want to make sure everyone is cared for in their own way." The Brentwood house included in Nick's inheritance was not merely a piece of real estate, but a repository of countless family memories witnessed to both warm moments and profound challenges. Rob wanted Nick to keep this house so he could feel the value of family and at the same time have a stable place to live. The leaked will of Rob Reiner sparked a powerful wave of public outrage. Many people could not comprehend why he would give as much as 70% of his estate, including all film copyrights and the Brentwood home, to Nick Reiner, a man facing first-degree murder charges, for killing his parents. The situation led many to question whether Rob's love and indulgence had in some way contributed to the current tragedy. On social media, countless angry comments emerged expressing frustration and disbelief. How could he leave most of it to such a wayward child? While Jake and Romy were always well-behaved, some openly criticized Rob's decision. He loved his child so excessively that he inadvertently created the conditions for tragedy. This is proof that misguided indulgence can be devastating. The public began questioning the limits of parental love, especially when granting excessive power and resources without control can lead to serious consequences. Many psychologists also noted that Rob's extreme favoritism and desire to save Nick through money, power, and assets without effectively controlling his behavior may have unintentionally created an environment in which Nick could act in extreme and violent ways, ultimately leading to the deaths of his own parents. This outrage also reflects a painful reality. Love and indulgence, when misdirected, can harm not only the person being loved, but also destroy the remaining family relationships. Public opinion expressed deep sympathy for Jake and Romy, who were considered good, self-sufficient children with stable careers, yet were now dragged into a tragedy they did nothing to cause. Alongside the anger, many also felt sorrow for Rob himself, a father who loved his children unconditionally, but was blinded by excessive affection and favoritism, only to have his own decisions inadvertently give rise to a horrific tragedy. One comment on X read, "This is proof that love without limits can sometimes be more dangerous than hatred." When Rob Reiner's will was officially announced on the afternoon of December 19, 2025, Jake Reiner was still in Houston. He received an email from the estate management office exactly at noon and read it over and over, his face turning pale. 70% for Nick, only 5% for him and Romy. This is impossible. Dad promised he would be fair to all of us. Nick destroyed everything. Now he wants to take the inheritance, too, Jake muttered to himself, slamming his fist onto his desk. Overcome with anger, he immediately cancelled all his plans, booked the earliest flight back to Los Angeles, and left with grim determination. As soon as he landed, Jake headed straight to the office of his father's estate law firm, Lyons & Associates, a prestigious firm in downtown Los Angeles, specializing in complex Hollywood inheritance cases. Led by attorney Teresa A. Lyons, the firm had long been appointed by Rob Reiner to manage the family trust. Jake entered the brightly lit high-rise, his coat still dusty from travel, and demanded to see Ms. Lyons immediately. "I'm Jake Reiner. I need to see her right now. This concerns my father's will," he told the receptionist angrily, causing the office atmosphere to tense instantly. Teresa Lyons, a sharp attorney with over 20 years of experience in inheritance disputes, met Jake in a private conference room. She had anticipated this storm after the will was announced, but seeing the rage on the young man's face still moved her deeply. "Jake, I understand your pain. Your father drafted this will with the intention of protecting Nick because he was worried about the boy's future. But now, with the criminal charges, the Slayer statute could change everything," Lyons explained calmly but firmly. Jake shook his head, his eyes red. "Ms. Lyons, I don't care about Dad's reasons anymore. Nick killed them. I want to reclaim what belongs to me and Rami. We deserve more than this." Without hesitation, Jake signed a contract on the spot with a private litigation attorney, Mark Gerros, the renowned superstar of criminal defense famous for handling major Hollywood cases, whom he contacted through a mutual friend. Gerros, with experience defending celebrities such as Michael Jackson and Chris Brown, agreed to represent Jake and Romy in a civil lawsuit challenging the enforcement of the will. "We will argue that the will is unreasonable because it failed to anticipate Nick's actions, and we will request that the civil court immediately apply the Slayer statute to freeze his share." The following morning, Romy and Jake met and attended their first meeting with Geragos at the law office. The two siblings sat side by side, hands tightly clasped, sharing fond memories of their parents amid piles of scattered legal documents. Their anger was not driven by money alone, but also by a deep sense of abandonment. They were children who had built independent lives, pursued their own careers without relying on anyone, and now found themselves having to fight simply to receive what they felt they rightfully deserved. They took their seats at a large wooden conference table with Geragos and Teresa Lyons, the estate attorney, sitting beside them. The atmosphere was heavy, and the will lay in the center of the table like a second piece of criminal evidence. Romy stared fixedly at the figure showing 70% allocated to Nick, her hands trembling. Why would Dad do this? Nick destroyed everything. Now he wants to take all of Mom and Dad's inheritance, too. Jake nodded, his voice filled with rage. "I don't understand it either. Dad worried about Nick because of his addiction and unemployment, but $140 million and the Brentwood house. That's where Mom and Dad lived, where everything happened, and us, the independent ones, were left with just 5% each." Romy wiped away her tears, her voice rising. "And Tracy, too. She's an adopted child from Dad's first marriage with Penny Marshall. She's not Mom Michelle's biological child. Yet, she gets 20%, $40 million. Why does she get more than us? The biological children who were raised by Mom and Dad from the beginning." Jake squeezed his sister's hand, his eyes red. "I'm thinking exactly the same thing. Tracy has her own family and her own career. She doesn't need to depend on anyone. But what about us? Mom and Dad were always proud that I worked in journalism, and you pursued art without ever asking them for money. Now this will feels like Dad is punishing us for being independent while rewarding Nick and an outsider." Gargo stepped in, his tone, calm but firm. "I understand how you both feel. If Nick is convicted, the Slayer statute will remove him and the 70% will automatically be redistributed. But as for Tracy, she is a legally adopted child and is treated the same as a biological child under California law. If you want to challenge her share, we would need to prove undue influence or that your father lacked capacity when he made the will, which is extremely difficult. Romy shook her head emphatically. No, we have to stand together. Not a single dollar should go to Nick or to Tracy either. She is not biologically related to Mom Michelle. This estate should belong to the true biological children of our parents, you and me. Jake immediately agreed. Exactly. We'll sue to invalidate most of the will and ask the court to redistribute it more fairly or at the very least freeze everything until the criminal case is resolved. We cannot let outsiders profit from this pain. But the inheritance battle had not yet reached its lowest point. At the very height of tension, a name that seemed outside the bloodline suddenly entered the game, completely overturning all prior calculations. After learning that her younger siblings were fighting over the estate, Tracy Reiner, unwilling to be left behind, quickly hired her own legal team to protect the 20% allocated to her under the will. She argued that as the eldest child, she had spent many years serving as a pillar of the family, caring for her parents and maintaining relationships among the siblings, and that limiting her rights would constitute a serious injustice. Tracy promptly retained a top Hollywood inheritance attorney, David O. Carter, to defend her 20% share. Carter immediately sent a warning letter to Garagos, asserting that he would counter-sue if Jake and Romy deliberately challenged Tracy's portion and demanding that the court uphold the will in its entirety, except for Nick's share. Tracy has equal legal rights and any attempt to exclude her will be strongly opposed. The letter stated clearly, the legal battle within the Reiner family quickly escalated, turning law offices into hubs of constant meetings, document drafting, and litigation strategy sessions. The public followed every development closely, with the majority siding with Romy and Jake, sympathizing with their desire to reclaim fairness for themselves and protect the family legacy. However, had Rob Reiner and Michelle still been alive, they would undoubtedly have been devastated to see their children turning against one another over money rather than preserving the bond they had worked so hard to nurture. Rob and Michelle devoted their entire lives to loving their children, from caring for and raising them to watching every step of their growth. Those close to the family shared that Rob always made time and showed deep concern for his family despite the demanding schedule of a Hollywood star. He was involved in every stage of his children's lives, from choosing schools and offering career guidance to long conversations about future choices. On one occasion, he reminded them gently, "Your parents will always be here listening and helping you whenever you need us." Rob's children once acknowledged that the love Rob and Michelle showed was not expressed only through words, but also through concrete actions. They were supported by their parents in overcoming hardships, especially Nick, who had struggled with addiction and instability throughout much of his life. Rob and Michelle even worked alongside Nick on the project Being Charlie, hoping it would become an opportunity for reconnect and help their son confront himself. Romy once told friends, "Our parents never abandoned us no matter what happened." Jake and Romy also described Rob as a deeply involved father, someone who stayed close to them like a companion rather than a distant authority figure. They felt the patience and compassion Rob extended to each child, ensuring that no one was left behind even when facing the most difficult challenges. Close friends of the family also remarked that Rob was a father who consistently placed family above all else, wanting his children to feel his love and protection at every stage of their lives. Even Tracy, amid the tension surrounding the inheritance dispute, admitted that this tragedy went against the very values her parents had instilled in them. She acknowledged that Rob had often reminded his children, "Family comes first. You must always cherish one another and help one another. Do not let money destroy your relationships." Those words now seem to echo through the law offices during tense meetings, reminding everyone that their parents' original intention had never been to create conflict. Many people are now waiting for an appropriate verdict for Nick Reiner. Yet one undeniable reality is that he has shown a strangely confident demeanor in the face of public scrutiny. Observers have noted that despite facing extremely serious criminal charges, Nick appears decisive and proactive in preparing his defense, particularly in his choice of legal representation. Nick selected Alan Jackson, one of the most prominent criminal defense attorneys in Los Angeles, known for representing high-profile figures such as Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, and defendants in numerous complex murder cases. This choice was widely seen as a strategic move reflecting Nick's ambition and careful calculation in confronting such a grave case. With legal fees estimated at over $2,000 per hour and total costs potentially reaching millions of dollars, many have questioned how Nick, an unemployed individual with a long history of addiction, could afford to hire such a super lawyer. A source close to the matter revealed that Nick is highly confident in using mental health as a core element of his legal strategy. He believes that if he can prove he suffers from mental illness, not only could his sentence be mitigated, but his inheritance rights might also be protected, including the 70% share of his parents' estate. In fact, Nick is believed to have calculated that establishing a diagnosis of mental illness could allow him to legally retain the entire inheritance, including film copyrights and the Brentwood residence. This has led some to raise serious questions. Was the killing of his parents driven by an intentional plan to seize their assets? Or was it merely the tragic consequence of addiction and mental disorder? As public opinion wavers in uncertainty, mental health experts have suggested that Nick may be both a victim and an aggressor within his own family. His years-long struggle with addiction is considered a mitigating factor. Yet, the act of killing his parents still raises profound questions about intent and premeditation. The funds used to retain Alan Jackson are believed to have come from trusts or assets that Nick had access to before the tragedy occurred. If this is true, then even if Nick suffers from mental illness, his actions appear to have been carefully calculated to exploit the biased will and existing legal loopholes, transforming a family homicide into what some describe as a cold, financially motivated scheme. So, just how vast was the fortune Rob Reiner left behind? And what lies beneath those staggering figures that has driven the entire family into an inescapable battle? Let us peel back each layer of truth. Rob Reiner spent his entire life under the bright lights of Hollywood, leaving behind a net worth estimated at approximately $200 million. This was not merely money, but the accumulation of time-realized dreams and immeasurable losses. He was widely known for his role as Meathead in the iconic television series All in the Family, which earned him 2 Emmy Awards. Yet, his greatest success came as a director and producer. Most notably, co-founding Castle Rock Entertainment in 1987 provided him with a stable and enduring income stream, producing highly profitable works such as Seinfeld and blockbuster films like The Shawshank Redemption. The founding of Castle Rock Entertainment in 1987 was a decisive turning point as the company became the force behind enormously profitable films and television series. The sale of Castle Rock to Ted Turner in the early 1990s brought Reiner a substantial payout, laying the foundation for his financial empire. In addition, Rob Reiner continued to receive back-end profits from major film successes, allowing income to flow steadily even as he gradually reduced his workload. Real estate accounted for a significant portion of that wealth and was also deeply tied to both the happiest memories and the most painful tragedy of his life. The Brentwood estate in Los Angeles where Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner lived for decades was the most prominent asset. Purchased in 1991, the expansive property spans nearly 1,000 square meters and features multiple bedrooms and bathrooms, a large garden, a swimming pool, and luxurious living spaces. Its current value is estimated to range from over $10 million to more than $20 million depending on market fluctuations and valuation methods. More than just a house, the Brentwood mansion symbolized the stability and success Reiner had achieved. Yet, it was this very place that became the scene of the couple's deaths, transforming a space once filled with laughter into a chilling end point for a life that once seemed complete. The material value of the property is therefore inseparable from the psychological trauma it now carries. Beyond Brentwood, Rob Reiner also owned a beachfront property in Malibu Colony, a neighborhood renowned among Hollywood's ultra-wealthy. This home was not only a luxury retreat, but also a highly profitable investment with an estimated value of $15 to $20 million. During peak periods, it was reportedly rented out for hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, demonstrating how Reiner leveraged his assets to generate ongoing cash flow. Earlier still, Reiner had bought and sold a home in Beverly Hills, earning substantial profits and showcasing his keen eye for real estate investment. These transactions, though largely out of the public eye, quietly contributed to expanding his already formidable fortune, like individual bricks steadily building a solid financial fortress around his family's life. After everything, the legal battles among Rob Reiner's children over the massive inheritance have now become a deeply painful family tragedy. Parental love, once a binding force, has been torn apart by rivalry, disagreement, and legal maneuvering. Every decision, every document, and every word spoken in law offices now echoes with the pain and disappointment that Rob and Michelle surely would never have wanted to see. The public has been left stunned as familial bonds are tested by money and power, prompting difficult questions. Did love and indulgence become contributing factors to this tragedy? Who truly deserves the legacy Rob left behind? And can the siblings reconcile once the legal war finally ends? These questions remain unanswered, making the Reiner family story both gripping and profoundly heartbreaking. What do you think about this legal battle? Who will ultimately prevail? And can family bonds still be saved? Leave your comment below to share your perspective. And don't forget to subscribe to follow the next developments in the tragic Reiner family saga. Every share and every comment helps us better understand the consequences of love, money, and power within a famous